Today I'll be showing you guys how I expanded the crawly gnome lore into LEGO with this short animation. I'll have it linked down below, and I recommend you guys go check it out as much of this video will be based on that. You guys are probably more familiar with Crawly the gnome at this point, so I won't go into too much detail, but in case you aren't though, you should check out my last video where I make Crawly in LEGO. In my last Crawly video, I asked you guys whether you are on Team Gnomes or Team Knights, and I got a lot of responses, but that left some people wondering what side I'm on. And well, I'll turn the camera around and show you guys. That's right, I just had to go with the Knights. It's in my profile picture, and most of the videos I made in the past were related to LEGO Knights. Oh man, I can already hear all the gnome supporters raging in the comments. But anyway, for my LEGO stop motion, I have decided to include some knights that we see in Crawly's videos, and I'm not talking about those security guards, but rather this tinfoil abomination, which always seemingly comes out of nowhere to ambush Crawly the gnome. But first I needed to decide how Crawly will meet them, which is where the lore kicks in, and there's a lot to dissect in just this 26-second video, so let's take a closer look. I decided to make the first scene with Crawly as he tries to go into the historical brick store, but you'll notice that there's a sign on the right side which actually says no Crawly gnomes, and the little picture there is from a real store which actually put this sign up on the front of their store because Crawly frequently visited them. So I found that pretty funny, and I decided to do something similar here. The way I achieved that was putting a 2x4 plate sign in the animation phase, and then adding the image as well as the text in post-production, similar to how I did the TVs in my last Crawly video. In hindsight, I probably should have positioned the camera in a way where the sign is more at the center of the screen, where the viewer clearly sees it, because to me it seems like most viewers didn't notice that it's there. So Crawly notices that he's unwelcome here and angrily waves his wand at the sign. The idea is that the historical brick store has become used to Crawly's raids by putting the sign up and having the security guard ready at all times. Just like right now where he gets chased, you can see that there's some pretty cool camera movement. This was combined with a blue screen in the background, so I was able to take that out and place an image in the background. Alright, so what's happening right now is the security guard is chasing Crawly. And if we take a look at Dragon Frame right here, you can see that it doesn't look the best. I want Crawly to be able to go towards the trash can, and you can't really see that right now. So what I'm gonna do is actually use this stop motion trick where you actually move the whole set instead of moving the camera. And what that does is, you'll see, if we look at the previous frame, it sort of curves the wall over there, and it's gonna look amazing once it's done. Yeah, it's gonna look like the camera is sort of tracking Crawly's movement, but it's actually the set that's moving and not the camera. And for the background image, we are staying consistent with what we did before with the H&M image. This time around, because of the way I move the camera, I decided to start from the end of the scene and work my way backwards, matching the image with the rest of the set as I went along. So Crawly makes his way towards the trash can, and if you watched my last Crawly video, you'll know that this trash can is a special one for Crawly because it can teleport him to places. So that's exactly what you see here. He climbs into the trash can, and the way I did that was basically gradually disassemble him as he went deeper in. Then I added this fancy transition between this scene and the next. I also added some magical sparkles and the Mario tube sound effect, which I thought would make it more funny. The trash can then appears in a cellar room of a medieval inn, which I have reviewed recently. You can watch that video in the top right of your screen right now. The cellar room was too low for a minifigure to stand, which made me realize that it is probably made just for Crawly the gnome, which inspired me to make this video. You'll notice that the music changed to a more medieval style song. Crawly goes up to the stairs into the first floor and is spotted by a couple of musicians, one with a lute and one with a lyre. I always confuse the two instruments because they sound so similar, but that is a lute and that is a lyre. They stop playing because they are surprised by the appearance of a Crawly gnome which just got here from their cellar. They are serious at first, but then Crawly makes them play a more recognizable tune and they become happy again. So for the musician scene, I basically just took their arms off the torso, and that allowed me to basically position their hands on their instrument and make it look like they're actually playing it. And you can see I actually used some sticky tack over there to better achieve that. And what ended up working out was basically these hoods actually cover that up, so it doesn't really look like their hands are detached. Now, on the second floor, it just so happens that there are a group of knights that are peacefully resting. They are awoken by the whimsical gnome music, which they are very familiar with, so they all rush down to catch the gnome intruder. I tried to give the knights armor that had the same shine as the tinfoil one which we see in Crawly's videos. Speaking of which, as they get down the steps, you can see that their leader, the one with the barbute helmet, is bashing two buckler shields together, just like the knight in Crawly's videos likes to bash two kitchen pot lids together. Then the knights start chasing the gnome, and here's where you see some pretty cool camera movement. This was actually done by rotating the inn as well as turning the camera, and I think it turned out quite well. So he then jumps out the window, leaving the three knights stuck behind the table. This scene is where he drops down, regains his control, and walks towards the little arch under the stairs as the knights exit the inn from the main entrance to look for the gnome. And I know what you're thinking, there are a few frames here where it looks like the knight spots the tip of Crawly's hat, but that is not the case because that helmet has pretty bad visibility, especially if you try and look up or down, and I could say that from my personal experience with this bucket helm, which is not too different in terms of visibility. He then puts his finger on his mouth, similar to what the real Crawly does, and is followed by a transition as he goes into the inn cellar. And I made sure to loop the video by also continuing that same transition into the beginning of the video. And just like that, I expanded the Crawly gnome lore into LEGO, and now into my medieval world. Even though I'm not much of a medieval fantasy fan, a little bit of fantasy here and there really spices things up here on my channel. If you're interested in picking up the medieval inn set which is featured in this video, I'll leave a few affiliate links down below to LesDiy, who sells this inn, as well as many other MOCs which you can get to expand your collection. You can also use code HBS20 to get 20% off your entire purchase with them. The Amazon links to all of my gear will be down in the description as well. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.